this is so much harder than we thought it would be. It's so much more of a struggle, but I wouldn't change anything about it. I wouldn't go the other way.
Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of, what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. Having the show wasn't something I started out to do. But the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things. And Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. But these guys are literally taking, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, as they're protecting our lives, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys. I'm bringing you Daniel Wright, and he's got a really cool story of how an electrician became a leather bag manufacturer, doing these handmade, custom-sewed leather pieces, articles, bags, and you get to hear me bust his chops about being a guy who creates purses for a living. So enjoy this episode, guys. All right, guys, going to be another fun episode today. I'm bringing you a new buddy of mine that was referred to me by a really close friend. So I'm bringing you Daniel Wright. He's got a pretty cool story about where he got, how he got there. So I'm really looking forward to this one. So, Daniel, my friend, welcome to the show, brother. Tell us your story.
Hey, thank you for having me. Yeah, my story is a crazy one because, as you said, my name is Daniel Wright, and I'm owner of W Durable Goods, which it's hard to define what we do because we're kind of a sewing shop. But in a new world, it's kind of weird to do sewing. But I'm an electrician by trade. I did that for 15 years full time. And I never pursued my dream per se, but I always kept it alive. And when I say dream, I just mean being an artist. And I've always wanted to create things and design things. And so I worked as an electrician and I sewed bags at night. And I don't know why bags, but I like making small bags for myself. And it really took off. And I really just needed a way to recoup my mistakes and raw materials. So I just started selling them on Etsy and eBay and doing these small podunk shows. And people kept buying this stuff. And I thought, wow, they're actually buying my stuff. And, over time, had more demand for the product. We had to move it out of the house. So now we're in our third shop, 9 sewing machines, and we have a real retail showroom.
So let me get this straight. You're an electrician that's now made a career out of sewing purses.
Pretty much, yeah. It's funny because I'm perceived in so many different ways. Some people think I'm a leather shop. Some people think I'm a purse maker, and some people just see me as like a custom bag maker. But behind the scenes, the real money maker is private label manufacturing. So like more than anything, I make stuff for other people because I've gone through the struggle of like, pattern making, figuring out the machinery and everything. So now people come to me with their designs and say like, hey, what, this is my budget. What can you do for me?
Okay. So I know leather sewing machines are stupid expensive. How the hell did that even start as a hobby?
Well, to say the truth, I mean, zipper bags. And it sounds silly, but like, I needed zipper bags. And
when you say zipper bags, are you talking about like bags you'd put pencils in or
yeah,
what?
less, but bigger sizes or different sizes. Because I had zipper bags that we used in our electrical work. And I stored half my tools in zipper bags. And it was easy, it was convenient. But I also wanted like little small ones, and I wanted really big ones. And I was like, I can make these, but I couldn't find any on the market that weren't like super chintzy, Excuse me. And so I started, that's the first thing I made.
Wait, so you were making yourself a bunch of man purses?
No. Which I'm not opposed to.
Okay, so you're making a bunch of zipper pouches, if you will. That you're storing your tools, your wiring, your caps, your stuff for your electrical trade. That's really flipping cool. I mean, I did HVAC work a long time, and your tool bag is like everything.
It's your life.
Yeah, 100%. And if it's not organized, you're screwed because certain situation when you're bent upside down, backwards, like a contortionist around whatever, you got to be able to just reach back and feel for exactly where that tool is supposed to be,
Yeah, it's just a pure utility function. I mean, we even have a list of 101 things you can put in your zipper bag, because everybody that buys it has a different purpose for them.
Okay, what's the most odd thing you have on that list? I'm just curious.
It's what one guy described as paraphernalia. Okay, dude, that's fine, and that's what I get it for.
Just put some tools over it. Nobody will know it's there. It's awesome. That's awesome. So, okay, so did you just go out and buy a leather sewing machine and start sewing stuff, or where'd this sewing passion come from?
Well, I bought a home sewing machine because, as you're an electrician, you tear your clothing or you mess it up or something, and so I wanted to do small repairs on my clothing, and I needed a machine to do that, and that's when I started expanding, like, oh, maybe I can make other things, and the home sewing machines just totally are junk. I don't think there's any home sewing machine on the market that's really worth buying.
No, I bought a couple for my wife, and, for odd and end jobs, they're great, but if you're going to try and do anything more than patching a pair of blue jeans, you're toast.
And so I actually got really angry, I threw away 2 home sewing machines, and I said, I'm just going to go buy, and so I bought a used machine from a guy in Dallas, and that really exploded my mind. I was like, well, this is what a sewing machine is supposed to be, And
Well, that's just funny to me. I mean, I'm going to completely bust your chops here because, when you think of a dude doing any sort of a hobby, it's like blacksmithing or knife making or, he's building guns and, hunting, and you're sewing.
yeah, well, it's practical. I mean, I hate throwing stuff away. I mean, part of it was because I wear shirts out too. Like when I wear a shirt, like I wear it till the elbows fall out, and then I patch the elbows, and then when the collar's all messed up, I turn the collar around.
So you literally live the Dolly Parton song, "The Coat of Many Colors."
Yeah, I mean, I have the shirt of many patches. I mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that can really come in handy on the farm because, out here between my brother and I, my dad, when we're all out working, I've blown the crotch out of so many pair of blue jeans, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
My wife's always like, what the hell do you do to them? Wear them. You step over a fence.
Yeah, actually working them, yeah.
Right. So what was it like as you started going from hobbyist to like, maybe I can really turn this into a business? I mean, did you become a millionaire overnight type thing?
No, I mean, I think one guy that I know, he's in the tent and the hunting business, so we both have sewing machines, but we do different things. And we stay pretty tight because we share information. And he told me one time, he goes, I didn't know how much money I had to make money. And I said, yeah, that's right. Because, when you're doing it out of your house, you have like zero overhead. Your only labor cost is your own. And then as soon as you start to move that out, you have more rent, more office supplies, more nitpicky jobs. And it's hard to transition into that because your mindset isn't in the mindset of, I got to make this profit margin and all this kind of stuff because you're doing it as a hobby. You're still learning. And so all of a sudden you got to transition that to, it's like, I need to make money here. You have to totally rethink your pricing, the complexity of your products, everything.
Yeah. I walked through a sewing shop just on the outskirts of downtown Fort Worth, and I had to go tour their facility, and they had like 50, 60 machines set up, and they had like 2 people sewing because the overhead for the equipment and everything else just wasn't, and trying to pay people the demand versus what it cost to produce the things. They couldn't make money if they fully staffed it, so they just worked these 2 people to the bone.
Right. You have to work, or one thing my dad always said, and it's true, even as an electrician, I mean, if you want to make money, you got to work short-handed because unless you're pumping out huge volume all the time, labor cost is going to eat you up, not to mention rent or whatever.
Right. And then there's no thought to automate this process? I mean, surely there's a machine somewhere you can just like hit doot program and go.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people think, but I mean, I tell people like the most basic, you don't live, there's not a second of your life goes by that you're not touching a sewn product, I mean, I'm sitting here, obviously all my clothes are stitched, but so is my car upholstery, and so are my shoes and the the floor mats. And I mean, those are all done on sewing machines, and yeah, they're not robots. Like robots, they still haven't found a way to replace sewers. And even your T-shirt is, I mean, somebody's running that through a machine, and they have sewing shops in India where they're sewing machines for as far as the eye can see, and that's still a reality.
Well, I know growing up, my mom worked in a factory at one point. It was Lee Jeans, and I don't even think Lee Jeans are still around, and that's what she did is she sewed jeans, and I think she actually took the screw up jeans and made them right. And I remember seeing that factory floor, and it's just like what you had described. I mean, you got just a massive amount of people, and this was in Kansas, sitting around sewing stuff.
Yeah, it's still like that, and that's why it's really a luxury that we get our clothing for as cheap as we do, because it's all been outsourced.
Right. Wow, that's crazy. So what's it like? I mean, did you go straight from electrician to the sewing thing, or was this like transition period?
It was a transition period, and it was kind of interesting as a personal thing with, me and my dad. One time he ran like 8 guys. He had a big crew. They were doing big jobs. Well, the older he got, the more he condensed his work. And so we were only down to like a couple guys. And I just started tapering off a little bit, and I told my dad, I was like, if this keeps going good, you're going to need to be retiring in a couple of years. And I said, this takes off, it takes off. At one time I was working, like 3 days as an electrician, and then 3 days in the shop sewing. And we had a small shop outside the house at that time. It was like 700 square foot shop. And I was doing everything out of there. We did some trade shows, and yeah, it was a slow transition, but we did one trade show in New York that we did really good sales. I say really good sales. We did really good sales. The overhead cost was still very high. It was going to be so much, work. I told my dad, it's like, at least for the next, couple of months, I can't do any electrical work, Well, if you're making money, I don't really care what you're doing. You don't have to follow in my footsteps. He goes, I just want you to be successful in whatever you're doing. And my dad had a little bit of trepidation about me transitioning into that because he says, you've got to make money,
Right.
And that was his only concern, is just I want you to be able to be okay in whatever you're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. At least you had the support. Because I know a lot of dads that run businesses, in their mind is they've built this legacy that the son or daughter is supposed to take over and run with. So good on your old man for allowing you to spread your wings a little bit and go for it.
And it really, in a sense, I feel like I am following in his footsteps because it's entrepreneur, it's running your own business, and a lot of it overlays. I don't feel like my life as a sewer and designer is too much different than being an electrician. The client has a need, I'm fulfilling that need, and I'm sending them a bill.
So, right, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about being an entrepreneur. I get a lot that listen to the show. So being an entrepreneur, it's all sunshine and rainbows, right? You just come out, you print money, and, every day is happy days, and it's fun, and, it's what everything that people expect it to be, right?
On Instagram, yes.
So you're sitting behind your Bentley on the big house, and
I rent the Rolex watch. And
Right.
Yeah, only small business owners can kind of understand the struggle. But I hear the same thing from everybody. And I was just we're having dinner Saturday night with some friends of ours that own a bakery, and we were talking about it. And we were just saying, you know what, this is so much harder than we thought it would be. It's so much more of a struggle, but I wouldn't change anything about it. I wouldn't go the other way. And I think it's awesome. Just frankly, to live in America and free market and be able to take that risk. And there's something about it that I think is connects with the human spirit, really.
No, I get it. It's when I jumped out on my own that I think for the first time I really understood what hard work was. I thought my entire life I'd busted my ass to, do certain things, and I'd had great success in certain arenas, but it's a whole nother ballgame to run your own company. Especially, and I haven't got to the point where I brought employees. I work with several 1099s, right? But you have other people's livelihoods in your hand, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. What was that like, bringing on your employees and everything?
Yeah, we've structured it now where all my employees are part-time because sometimes we're busy and sometimes we're not. And I've tried to get people that, aren't worried about if they get 40 hours a week, because hey, if we're really busy, we're going to work more. If we're not busy, we're going to work less, And that was something that I couldn't do until recently, actually, because when you're growing, you're hemorrhaging so much money all the time because, you have octopus arms trying to do everything all at once. And it's almost like you have to get big to get small. And that's kind of a little bit what my dad's story was, but a little bit my story too. I had to get out there and do a lot of things and be a lot of things and not be very profitable to actually figure out where you fit in the market so you can get smaller and more profitable.
Yeah, no, I totally get it, because for me, the way I started my business was completely transformed to where my business is functioning as an entity now, and a lot of it is not planned trial and error. You get an idea, you're like, I think I'm going to go this way, or I'm going to do this, and then you're like, oh, that was stupid. That didn't work at all, right? So you just switch gears and go a different direction. Has that been pretty much the same thing for you?
Yeah, because I've pursued a lot of things that I thought, I don't know what my track record is, but I think it's at least maybe 60%. It's everybody's going to love this, and then everybody doesn't. and then you make something just based on a customer's needs, and you think, oh, nobody's going to like this, and everybody does like it. And you have to be flexible like that, and that's one of the reasons I say, I tell younger people, don't follow your dream, because it may be the wrong thing, but but keep your dream alive because it may take you somewhere even better. Because if I had it my way, I would like to be, I don't know, a graphic artist or a costume designer maybe. I mean, there's a lot of avenues that you can go for an artistic outlet, and this is just where it's taken me. And so I've had to adapt a lot because, you know, there's some things that you see other people doing and you think, well, that's working out great. Doesn't mean it's going to work out good for you, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a buddy named Donald Dotson. He has Dotson Designs, and he does all hand tooling. So he makes pouches and everything else. But it's all hand tooling. So he's even, you know, worse off than you guys in doing his stuff. Everything for him is just kind of a one-off thing. He doesn't have any way to mass produce because it's just him doing it. So if he goes and does a show, you know, he's going to take a couple months to build enough things to go and do one show. I mean, is that kind of the same thing you guys do? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, like when I do less trade shows than I used to. I used to do more trade shows. We did the New York Home and Gift Show and getting out there like the big boys do. And yeah, we would make sales, but you know, like your customer acquisition cost was really high. And I found out recently that I'm just as happy to go drive down to South Texas to some, you know, small music festival and maybe not even sell anything, but hand out, you know, 100 matchbooks with our business on it and get 30 Instagram followers and do that kind of marketing that cost me almost nothing except my sweat. And I've ended up getting really good contacts out of just alternate ways to get because the old business model, like doing the trade shows and putting your ad in the yellow pages, that's not really the deal now. And so I try to, you know, our business has turned into, like I said, we do mostly like private label manufacturing. My own brand, W Durable Goods, and the bags that I design and create, that's really become almost an avenue for other things. That's what draws people in. I have to do the cool stuff to get the not cool stuff. Cool stuff doesn't always pay the bills, but the not cool stuff does. You know?
Right. Well, you know, and that's a fun way of looking at it is I think commerce as a whole is going through this huge renaissance right now, and it's all getting flipped on its head because as these millennials are coming up through the ranks, the way they purchase, the way they buy, the way they interact is just cool. You listen to a lot of people out there that give you all advice, and they tell you to do this and they tell you to do that when it comes to how you do your commerce and everything else. Man, it's all about getting in with your customers, the people, and understanding how they want to buy. You know, there's no one set method, but, you know, for me, I love the fact that anybody, especially in the times we're in now, can open up a small business of some sort, maybe turn their hobby into a business if they can find success and profitability with it, you know, but ultimately, you know, you don't even have to make something, manufacture something. You can go find something else that you're into, and somebody's going to manufacture it and sell it. I love the fact that I don't think the big Fortune 5s will completely go away, but they're definitely going to have to change their game to keep up with small business America.
Yeah. I mean, when you're small, you're flexible, and I've tried to use that to my advantage. There's some things that I've been able to, like, get to market. I mean, we do, like, really fast turnarounds on some stuff where people will come to me and, like, this event's coming up and I need, you know, 200 pieces of something. And I'm like, well, let's figure something out. Like, I can't do this, but I can do this. And the big boys can't do that, you know. I mean, a big company can't say. They have to, like, plan, like, 3 months in ahead. And I've literally cranked out something, like, you know, the same day, you know, if it fit their need. And like you said, I think sometimes there's a little bit of discouragement because people say, like, well, it's all been done before and there's nothing new under the sun. And while that's partly true, it doesn't mean it can't be reinvented, put a different color on it, do something. I mean, there's a lady that we know, and she makes, like, embroidered greeting cards. And she's, like, doing, like, cross-stitch on the front of greeting cards. And they're just like, well, that's weird. But it works, and people like it, and she sells them, you know. So there is always something new out there. And, yeah, you're going to get ripped off, and, yeah, somebody else is going to do it after you do it. But that's kind of part of the game. That used to bother me, actually, when somebody would get really close to my design, or I really feel like I got knocked off, you know. But then it's just, to me, you know, that bugged me early on, but now I'm just like, you know what, on to the next thing, because that's just the nature. That's just the world that we live in, you know?
Yeah, but the first time it happened, right? That first time, you know, you create this like wicked design that's, you know, this is your baby, you know, you came up with the whole concept, you put it on the marketplace, and then you turn around and somebody else has duplicated the damn thing. I mean, that first experience, you know, you gotta want to snatch somebody up and punch them in the face, be like, what the hell were you thinking? You know?
No. I mean, actually, I had J. Crew Corporate email me and said, like, hey, we're interested in some of your bags. And I thought they meant that they wanted to buy them to sell them. Like, they have a flagship store in New York. And I thought, oh, wow, they're interested in my bags. You know, and I was foolish enough to, they bought them from me. And I sent like 4 or 5 bags up there to their headquarters in New York. And then never heard from them again. It was like crickets, you know. And then their next catalog, like, I don't know, fall, winter, spring, summer catalog, they had like an exact pattern, but they were using it on a different product. I was like, did they really just knock me off? Like, maybe I don't want to be so, you know, I don't want to say like, you know, I'm so important that they copied me, but it definitely made you suspicious, you know?
Right. That's the funny thing about these big businesses is they're not all this way, but a lot of them have lost touch with actual Americans. You know, they don't know what their taste, they don't know what their styles would. And I'm not political, but that's what happened during the last presidential race is, you know, they only looked at one side of the population. That's all I want to talk about that. But, you know, it's that thing is they don't know how to get down to the individual person and figure out what they're looking for. So the only way the big companies can do it is rip off designs of small independent designers.
I think that's true. I mean, we're more disconnected than ever because, I mean, we say we're more connected, but we're connected in kind of a false way with social media and everything. You're only seeing what people want you to see. Yes, we're very connected, but it's very one-sided.
Well, but you're only seeing what you want to see, and here's what I mean, is the way the algorithms work is if I click on one of your handbag posts, right, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all those, Google, all think that I'm into that, so my feed is going to change into everything that has to do with that.
Right.
So if you only see one side of a story, that's all your feed's going to be filled with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, you know, people say that social media is rigging elections or they're changing, you know, perceptions, they're making people bad, or they're causing this disconnect. The truth of the matter is we're doing it ourselves. It's whatever we engage with, whatever we click on, whatever we make a move on, then our entire feed that we see is 100% that. So that's why I don't consume anymore. I don't get on to Facebook and everything else to consume things. It's strictly for me to put out content and interact with my people on my contact, so I'm not influenced by propaganda and sales activities and everything else.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. You know, one of my beliefs about my own design is, like, I kind of want to keep my head in the sand. I kind of want to not know what everybody else is doing.
Right.
I don't want to know what's cool. Because, like, whatever's cool now is not cool tomorrow.
Right.
It's hard to remain pure to your own intentions when your eyes are taking in so much other stuff, you know, and then all of a sudden, like, you can't get that out of your head. Like, oh, they're doing that. I like that. Maybe I should do that. And it's like, I think it's kind of tainting our creativity a little bit. And you got to do something different. Otherwise, it's like automatic competition. You know, if I see something that I like and I want to do the same thing, well, I'm creating my own, I don't know how to say it, like, that's competition. And I mean, we really should all be trying to do something that's not being done.
Right.
So we don't have a direct competitor.
Well, in my world, I don't think there's ever really competition, because at the end of the day, you know, you can do it, well, I can do it, you're going to connect with me, somebody else is going to connect with you. I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the individual buyer and what they want to do. You know, through and through, you know, it's just a wild time that we live in, that, you know, because people are so influenced by what they listen to, what they watch, you know, the friends they talk to in the world around them on a regular basis. So I even get guys on the show, and I can tell that they just got done watching 10 hours of Gary Vee, and then they come on the show to be an interview, and they're spitting out everything Gary Vee just said in his last video. I'm like, okay, I don't want what Gary said. I want what your thoughts are, you know. And I've paused a couple of episodes in the recording process. I'm like, okay, take a deep breath. I want your story, right? It's the same thing with you guys are doing in design, is like you're saying, if you go look at a whole bunch of designs out there, it may influence your next design. How do you come up with all your designs?
Really, I just kind of, live in the past. I like to look at old stuff. It's part of the thing is the reason what kind of has driven my design in the past is just assembly method. How is this thing put together? And so that kind of drives your design a little bit, and you start creating things. You don't want it to totally rule your design, but a lot of my designs have been created around what my capabilities are. Sometimes that's a limiting factor, but no shop has every machine in the world or every attachment or every, press or whatever. So, a lot of times my designs I try to keep them need-based, like what's a problem that I'm hearing about that I can create a solution to? And what can I do to give the customer a good bang for their buck? Especially I think in the South, people are very attuned to physical size. So I could take a bag, spend 30 minutes on it and make a big tote bag, it's just giant, big, and not even that nice, not a lot of finishing touches, and charge $80 for it, easy, right? But I can take like a little card wallet maybe and do really fine hand stitching and whatever. It takes me twice the time and charge $80 for it, and then nobody buys it because they say, oh, it's a little card case.
Right.
So you're trying to balance like how much fine details we put in a product and still make it marketable. So, really, I try to have an array of price points, where anybody can enter in. I want to make really nice stuff, but I also want to make really basic stuff that just works for people. Yeah, so you ask me how I come up with my designs. I just, try to have an array of products that I feel like people actually use. My greatest fear is that somebody buys one of my bags and it ends up in a closet for the next 10 years and never gets used because they didn't see much utility in it.
Oh, you mean like all the purses my wife owns that,
yeah, right. And they're all in their own little bags. And
right.
But, I mean, that's fine if you keep using them. But, I hate the fact that we buy stuff sometimes and don't use it. But I hope that all my bags are actually, like, being used,
Well, and what I really like is this is craftsman work. I mean, you got humans working on machines. I mean, there's a skill to that. I mean, to pump out a quality piece of material by hand, that's a lot of damn work and takes a lot of time. What's the craziest thing you've created that, maybe it's like your trophy sitting up on the shelf, you're like, that's the best bag I've ever made?
Oh, I only do a couple of them a year, but I do. People think like, oh, you have all leather briefcase. And I say, I don't stock an all leather briefcase, because they can range anywhere from $800 to $1,600, and I only do those all custom because it's a bag that you're going to have for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Wait, people still use briefcases? Because when I think of a briefcase, I think of my dad growing up,
Yeah, no, not like a hard side clamshell, but like a
more like a satchel.
Satchel, flap over bag, and people that's
a man purse.
Really classic look, and I make a couple of those a year, and I think when those come out right, I think there's nothing that looks better than that. Customer feels good, and I feel good, and it fits their needs. But you said craziest thing. I think the craziest thing I made was I made a dog carrier for a disabled lady. It was like her therapy animal, and I made a dog carrier bag that like went over her shoulders.
So it was a full like dog harness.
Dog harness, yeah. And a dog like sat in the bag, and I made like a waterproof liner and mesh on the sides. It was one of the biggest pain in the rear bags, but it turned out great.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, and then one time I made a bag for a guy's box fan because he could not sleep without his box fan. So I made him a nice bag so when he traveled, he wasn't walking around with a box fan. And I made a custom bag to fit his box fans for when he traveled.
I mean, literally like a window box fan? Like you buy exactly. For like $20 at Walmart?
Yeah, right.
All right, that's a first. I've never heard anybody traveling with their own box fan.
Yeah, but he did, and his buddies joked him about it, so he got a really nice bag. And it looked great. I'm sure nobody knew a box fan was in there. It looked like a big garment bag,
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I get it. I mean, when I travel, I've got sleep apps on my phone that'll make fan noises and everything else. I'm the same way. I can't say it, but I can't imagine checking a box fan. That's not fitting in an overhead compartment. So
no.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do you think some of the greatest lessons you've learned along this journey? I mean, because every business owner gets punched in the face once or twice, maybe 20 times.
Yeah, I mean, really my biggest lesson is don't put roots down too deep on anything, anywhere, not only like where you are physically, but ideology, and, don't get so emotionally invested in an idea that you can't throw it out the window tomorrow. Because if it ain't working, it ain't working. And that's kind of been our story like the last year. We had a golden opportunity to move into a building, and we had a nice retail store and shop, but the overhead was so high, and we were just turning dollars. And, yeah, our sales were here, but then our overhead was here. And in hindsight, I wouldn't get too deep with anything. And overhead is like the number one killer of any business.
And it's tougher on small business than it is big business.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I think you should do as much as you can with as little as you can for as long as you can, and make as much money as you can. Because, people talk about greed and everything. And I'm kind of like, be greedy if you want to be greedy. If you're the greediest person in the world, you should treat your employees right. You should give the customers good satisfaction and run a good business.
Right.
That's how you end up making money. It's
right.
Like greed can be exemplified in different ways, but keep your overhead low. Don't get too deep on anything. And just as a manufacturer and as a sewer, keep your standards up. Just on a personal note, one thing I wish I would have done a long time ago is standardize all my patterns. Everything I make, take notes on it, make a pattern for it, keep track of it, because you'll end up making things faster, more consistently. And so, when I started out, I was making just everything like one at a time. I should have standardized what I was doing. Even as a hobbyist, I should have done that. And, of course, that's a sewing note.
No, that's awesome. And, part of that is, chase the dollar. Don't chase the passion inside that business, because your customers will tell you which direction you need to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, the money comes from customers, last time I heard. If you're not doing what they want, and the way you present yourself is going to determine who that customer is a lot of times. And learn to say no to small things that don't really do anything for you. Because when you're slow, you'll say yes to anything.
Right.
And I still do that. Like, people go in the store and they have a little custom thing, and I really shouldn't say yes to it, but it sounds like a cool idea, and I've never done that before. Sure, I'll do it. But sometimes you should relinquish control. And another thing I've learned, too, is when you're a small business, people think we're control freaks because we do everything, But we do everything because we don't have a choice. We have to do everything. And when you're transitioning where you need to get a little bit bigger, it's not that it's hard to let go of control, but it's just hard to realize that it's okay and that you can let go and let somebody else do that. Because I've had some graphic design done that maybe it's not the same thing I would create. Maybe it's not 110% my vision. But you know what? It's good. It's good work. I don't have the time to mess with that. I'm going to let somebody else do that, and that's okay. Because running a small business, starting it out, transition from a one-man show to out of a hobby, you just get so accustomed to doing everything yourself, you don't even realize when you need to let go. It's not because you're a jerk and you're a control freak. It's just like, oh yeah, I can let somebody else do that, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's hard to do because you've gotten used to that rhythm, that routine of just doing it. And even though it's not your skill set, in your mind, it's like, well, I just got to get it done, because if I don't get it done, it keeps stacking up and everything else. So I know when I started outsourcing work, that was the toughest portion of it is, I did it all. Now they're doing it. Shit, are they going to do it the way I want them to do it? I mean, are they going to, pull it off the way I want them to pull it off? I mean, you worry and you struggle with all of that stuff. So, yeah. So that's awesome. I love how, Electrician became a purse maker. I mean, that's just a cool story, all the way through, and I'm always going to bust your chops. But I want to come see your shop. Love going to see the manufacturing process and stuff. So I'm inviting myself over to come take a tour of your place.
Yeah, that's like half of it right there. It's like
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Daniel, I got to tell you, it's been fun having you on the show. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. I'm glad Daryl Samuelson over at Glenscape made the introduction for us. He's a good dude. Here's how I like to wrap up every show. I do stump some people with this question, so be forewarned. If you were going to leave my audience of entrepreneurs, business owners, people who are thinking about going that direction, people who are going through struggles in life trying to overcome their own battles and demons, and they're trying to go through it, if you were to come up with a phrase, a motto, a mantra, a quote, something that they could use on that journey as they're going through it, what would be that thing you'd said as you're going through it? Remember this.
Persevere with patience.
Ooh, I like that. Because I can tell you right now, for me, patience has been the biggest struggle for my business. You know, I already see myself on the mountaintop, and I know I've got to make the climb, but I'm like, screw the climb. I just want to be there, dang it.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, Daniel, thanks so much for being on the show, brother. I really, truly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good.
Guys, really thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun putting these together. I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people. And from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped to over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says, Get My Social Content Done right now.